Om Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead me from the unreal to the real. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Today we are dealing with the pursuit of happiness. Every human being seeks happiness. There is no one who does not want happiness. All our actions aim at this one goal. Whatever we are doing, the final goal is happiness. But what gives happiness and how one attains happiness differ from person to person. What gives happiness to me may not be giving happiness to you. And what gives happiness to me at one time may not be giving happiness to me at another time. So it all changes from time to time, person to person, circumstances. And we try our best to avoid misery and suffering, but it's all in vain. So after happiness comes misery. Everybody has got their share of happiness and their share of misery. And they all always go together, happiness and misery. So that's why we see this statement of Swami Vivekananda. Happiness presents itself before man, wearing the crown of sorrow on its head. He who welcomes it must also welcome sorrow. We cannot avoid sorrow. If you seek happiness, sorrow will come as a papa, of course, because it's the other side of the coin. The two sides of the same coin. If you take one, you get the other one. Unavoidable. The happiness we enjoy at present is not lasting because it depends upon material objects. And material objects are not lasting. They are all impermanent. They are there for a short time. And so how can we hope to get permanent happiness from impermanent things? It cannot. It's an impossible idea. But we are so constituted that finite things can never give us satisfaction. We are never content with finite things because we have got the infinite within us, the divine, which is infinite. It is within us. So we are always seeking the infinite happiness. And through our ignorance, we are seeking that infinite happiness in the finite things, and we end up in misery. But of course, we are enjoying happiness. There are several different levels of happiness. The lowest level of happiness is what is derived from the contact or the sense organs with the sense objects. And as I said earlier, the sense objects, the objects in the external world are impermanent. They are perishable. So the happiness also is impermanent. That's the lowest level of happiness. It's not that we should ignore or avoid material objects. We need it. We need them. Sense objects are needed. It's important that we have it for our security and comfort. It's cold day, we need warm clothes. We need heating. We need shoes to walk. So things are needed. But we should understand that they are needed for our comfort and security, but they won't give them permanent happiness So we should not be slave to them. If I don't get something, I get so upset, so miserable. Whose fault is it? It's my own fault because I became a slave to that. Often we get addicted to these objects, sense objects, material objects. And if we don't get them, we think that that's the end of the world. We are going to suffer so much because we have become slaves to them. Instead of we being the masters, they have become the master and they rule over us, the sense objects. Bhartrihari, a great sage, in the Vairagya Satakam says, Hogama Phukta, Vayameva Phukta. It's not the person who has enjoyed the sense objects, but it is sense objects that enjoy the person. So actually, the sense objects are enjoying us. We enjoy coffee, to give an example. But after some time, what happens? We become addicted to it. And if we don't get the coffee, we become miserable. So coffee is enjoying us instead of we enjoying the coffee. That's why he says the sense objects enjoy the person. For a short while, they give pleasure. That's true. But they actually lead the vigor of, they deplete the vigor of the senses, sense organs. That's why we see Nachiketa telling Yama in the Katha Upanishad, Sarvendriyanam Jarayanti Tejaha. They wear out the vigor of all the senses of man. So when Yama tried to tempt Nachiketa, offering all the sense pleasures, you will have all the wealth that you want, you can live for a long time, you will have a long life, you can enjoy this vast kingdom and pleasures. Nachiketa, the wise young boy, said, these sense of pleasures wear out the senses, sense organs. So you keep your dances, horse, and songs all for yourself. I don't want all those things. Then the next level of happiness we have from the intellectual level. First one was the material level, happiness coming from the objects, sense objects. Then there's the intellectual level, solving. Some people are so interested in mathematics, their pastime, a hobby is solving mathematical problems. Swami Ramakrishnananda, one of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, he was very good in mathematics. So when he was too tired, he will take up some problems and solve them. That was his hobby or relaxation. That's another happiness on a higher level. Or trying to study, watch the stars, outer space, and try to find, discover new planets or Milky Way. These are all, they get great happiness. Happiness on an intellectual level. Then there is aesthetic happiness. With inspiration on a creative level, writing poetry or other literary works, painting, sculpture, composing music, they are all aesthetic happiness. So we need to go to higher levels of happiness or we will end up in misery. If we get stuck in one particular level, say, get stuck in or enjoying only the happiness of the sense objects, then we are like grown-up children still playing with their dolls and toys. Instead of enjoying or getting happiness from going to school, playing sports or education, we will be like them. Then we will tell the children, no, you have to grow up. You are grown up now, you can't play with the toys anymore. You have to go to school, you have to play sports. You have to
May my heart be in tune with the heart of the universe. May His power and glory be manifest in my life.
That's the problem of the technology. Then there is still higher level of happiness, which you get from selfless service. That is much more lasting than the earlier levels of happiness, and it's greater also. We gain more happiness in giving than in receiving. It may be physically tiring, but still, at the end of the day, when you have done something for another person without expecting anything in return, you enjoy great happiness. That's why Helen Keller said, happiness is not attained through self-gratification, but through fidelity to a worthy purpose. For some worthy cause, you may be exerting, physically you are tired, you are spending a lot of energy, but you gain happiness because you have done something for some other person. Then there's a still higher level of happiness which you get from deep meditation. Deep meditation, you go and touch God or yourself. That happiness is, we can say, the highest level of happiness. And that will bring about, the real meditation will bring about a complete change in our character and outlook. And that is the supreme happiness we can have. Sri Ramakrishna says in the gospel that he describes over 3 kinds of happiness. Vishayananda, it's the first one we mentioned, the happiness we get from enjoying the sense objects. Then Bhajanananda, happiness gained from singing the name and glories of God, or talking about the glories of God with other people of similar interest. Then finally, the highest one he speaks of is Brahmananda, the bliss obtained by communion with God. In the Bhagavad Gita, we see that Sri Krishna identifies the happiness gained through the contact of the sense objects as Rajasika, mediocre. According to him, it is like nectar in the beginning, but turns to be poison in the end. In the beginning, when you are starting to enjoy the happiness, it's very, very sweet, giving a lot of happiness. So it's like nectar. But in the end, it's poison. We see that all these, often people get a lot of joy going for party, drinking, all these things. But after some time, what happens? Go on spend all the time, and then come back tired, exhausted. The next morning you can't get up even. So started as nectar, ended up as poison. So when Imitation of Christ says, you have a happy outing, ends up in a miserable homecoming. You spend the day out happily with friends and having all the fun, and then come back sad, depleted of energy. Shri Krishna says he says it's become poison because we become slave to those particular happiness. And gradually it may even lead to our ruin. In the 2nd chapter, Shri Krishna very graphically describes how brooding over objects of enjoyment can lead to complete ruin. He says, brooding over objects, we create attachment of those objects. And then from attachment comes desire to possess. And if that desire to possess is obstructed, that leads to anger. From anger comes delusion. From delusion, confused memory. And when memory is confused, the reason is all gone, reasoning power of reasoning is destroyed, and then that leads to perish. the man perishes. Complete ruin. We find similar, almost similar words in the Imitation of Christ. It says, for first a simple thought comes to the mind. Just a simple thought. So that is brooding over the sense objects. Then a strong imagination. Afterwards, delight. And then evil motion and consent. And thus, little by little, the wicked enemy gains full entrance. We are not even aware because it comes gradually, little by little, a step by step. So we don't even realize that we are being overpowered by this. And thus, little by little, the wicked enemy gains full entrance when he is not resisted in the beginning. So when we had to be alert and try to control this in the beginning. And the longer a man is negligent in resisting, so much weaker does he daily become in himself, and the enemy becomes stronger. If we postpone it, resisting this impulse, then that becomes stronger, and we become so much weaker. So we see that we may have everything the world can offer, but if our mind is not calm and collected, and is not in our control, we cannot have lasting happiness. So managing our mind is very important if we want to have real happiness. Positive psychology is the field of psychology that dwells in the science of happiness. Earlier, modern psychology focused only on mental illness and behavior problems, all negative behavior patterns. In 1998, Martin Seligman, the then president of the American Psychological Association, started studying the positive aspects of human mind, like happiness. He gave a famous equation on the nature of happiness. H equals P plus E plus M. H is happiness. So happiness is P, pleasure, plus E, engagement, plus M, meaning. Pleasure, engagement, and meaning together gives happiness. That was the first step, the equation he gave first. Then later, the current equation is, or current theory of happiness is PERMA, PERMA. P is no longer pleasure. That they have gone, they realize pleasure is not going to give happiness. P is now, the current one, P is positive emotions. E is still the same, engagement. R is positive relationships. M, the same, meaning. And A is achievement. Achievement, not in the usual sense that we say achieving our goals of gaining position, powers, wealth. No, it's more than personal goals. So we see that psychology is coming now closer and closer to Vedantic ideas. And when we look at this, positive emotions, engagement, positive relationships, meaning, achievement, all of them are dealing with our mind. We say always that we should have good thoughts in our mind, and try to get rid of or avoid or reduce negative feelings like anger, hatred, jealousy, etc. Instead, we should be cultivating love, sympathy, compassion in our mind. That's what the positive psychology calls positive emotions. So how close these psychology is coming close to Vedantic ideas. So if you want to be happy, we have to learn to manage our minds. And that no one else can do. We have to do it ourselves. As Gita says, raise yourself by yourself. Uddharadatmanatman. Nobody can do it for us. Others can give us suggestions. The psychologists can ask us to do something, but that actual doing has to be done by ourselves. Nobody can do it for us. Ordinary mind is always oscillating between happiness and misery, joy and sorrow, like a pendulum, going from one end to another. One moment we are very happy, few hours later, a few days later, miserable. So the only way to avoid misery is to avoid the swinging of the pendulum. Otherwise, it will be going on and on and on. So we have to avoid the pendulum from swinging, or at least reduce it. Reduce the swinging of the mind and bring it closer to the equilibrium position. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaisaran atma vaisher vidhayatma prasadam adhigachati. The disciplined yogi or self-controlled person moving among sense objects with the senses under control and free from attraction and aversion gains in tranquility. So how to bring the mind to the equilibrium position between the mind swinging to the two extremes? The disciplined yogi moving among sense objects, not that he is going away from the sense objects, no, right in the middle of the sense objects, moving among the sense objects with the sensor under control. And again, free from attraction and aversion, gains tranquility. So if you want to get tranquility, this is what we have to do. When Sri Krishna says, this is the state of the yogi, he is asking us to perform this or cultivate this so that we can get tranquility. What are we to do? Disciplined, self-control, then have the senses under our control, and free from attraction and aversion. Now, what is attraction or attachment? Free from attachment and aversion. While last week I was in Adelaide and somebody was asking, what is detachment? What is attachment and what is detachment? Attachment is that which dwells on pleasure. Our mind goes again and again to that particular thing or person which gives pleasure. And that is attachment. And after some time, if you continue without any restraint, then it is very hard to detach that mind from that object or person. And this attachment is going to cause suffering for sure. So there is a Huineng, the first major Zen master, says, attachment leads to disturbance because it makes you a slave to the objects of your attachment. All your freedom is gone. You become a slave to the object of attachment. Whether it's an object or a person, we become slave to that. When these objects change, you are upset. So attachment leads to disturbance because it makes you a slave to the object of your attachment. When these objects change, you are upset. Those who learn to detach themselves completely from external objects enjoy complete serenity. So if you want to have serenity, if you want to have calmness of mind, you have to learn to detach from the objects, external objects. Be vigilant at all times. Attachment constantly reasserts itself. Once you have detached from something, don't be too sure that, oh, you have gained detachment. You won't be attached anymore. Attachment reasserts itself all the time. So we have to be constantly vigilant. Be vigilant at all times. Attachment constantly reasserts itself. So you must constantly strive for detachment. Often people have this confusion that detachment is indifference. No, detachment is not indifference. Detachment is not thinking about that particular object or person again and again, but opposed to attachment. But that's not indifferent. You will be caring for the person, you will be loving the person, but with detachment. As Sri Ramakrishna says in the example of the maid servant in the rich man's house. Loves the children, does everything for the child, there is no attachment. And what is aversion? Sri Krishna said, free from attraction and aversion. And then what is aversion? Aversion is that which dwells on pain and seeks to avoid that which gives pain. So we are attached to give things that gives us pleasure, and we want to avoid things which gives us pain. But both are bondage. Often we hear people saying, oh, love is a bondage. Well, love is bondage. Hatred also is a bondage. Hatred is just the other side of the coin of love. So that's not detachment. If you want to be detached, you should neither hate nor love. Love with detachment. So Swami Yadisharananda says, hatred is as bad as attachment. Oh, I'm not attached. I don't like the person. I have no attachment for that person. The very fact that you hate the person is another form of attachment. If you hate the person, you'll be remembering that person more and more. So it's another form of attachment. So that's why he says, Swami Yadisharananda says, hatred is as bad as attachment. In fact, it's the same thing. Both are fetters and degrade the human being, preventing him from rising to his true stature. In the epics stories, we hear so many cases where the person is hating God and cannot forget for a moment. Look at the example of Kamsa. He wants to kill Krishna. He has known that God has already taken a form as a human being, as a child, somewhere born, and wants to kill. So all the 24 hours, even in his sleep, he's thinking of Krishna because of his hatred. So hatred is another form of attraction, attachment. And they say there is two forms of devotion. One is love of God. Another one is hating God. And they say loving God, it may take you longer time to reach God. Whereas if you hate God, you'll reach quicker because you cannot forget even for a second. But that's a hard, more difficult path. You can go along the nicer path of loving God. Now, here Shri Krishna says, Atma Vaise Vidheyatma. One with disciplined mind. At present, we don't have any control over our mind. Our mind is scattered all over the place. And more on the negative aspects, having more and more negative emotions like anger, lust, greed, hatred, all these are there. And we have to bring this scattered mind back under our control, get control over it. Even for success in worldly life, we have to have a certain amount of control over the mind. If the mind is all scattered, can we do any work properly? Our work won't be proper. We won't be achieving anything if the mind is completely scattered. Now, what to speak of having making any progress in spiritual life? It is very important that the scattered mind must be collected and brought under our control. Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras gives this method how to collect this scattered mind. He says, Maitri Karuna Mudito Pekshanam Sukha Dukha Punya Punya Vishayanam Bhavana Dischitta Prasadanam. Undisturbed calmness of mind is attained by cultivating friendliness towards the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, and indifference towards the wicked. Calmness of mind is attained by cultivating friendliness towards the happy. Why does he say friendliness towards the happy? Aren't we happy seeing the other people are happy? Often not. Many times when somebody is happy, we become jealous. Though we may not express it, in the deep inner mind, we are jealous. Why should they have this happiness, or why should they have this success? Yeah, we are jealous of people. And that's going to cause us trouble. Nothing is happening to them. They are happy, but it's going to disturb us, our peace of mind. So if we want to be happy, if our mind to be peaceful, then we should have friendliness towards those who are happy. Compassion for the unhappy. Somebody is unhappy, somebody is going through some difficult time. Feel compassion for the person. But in the world, what do we see? We'll say, well, he or she deserved it. Then somebody else may say, no, that if somebody is opposing that they deserve compassion, we will say, that's all right, but we'll put a but to say that I'm not going to agree with you. And who is from that person is suffering, and we are also suffering. Instead, if we feel compassion, then our mind will be more contented, more calm. That's why he says compassion, instead of judging them harshly. Who knows? We may be in the same situation a few days later. You can never know. Things can start in a second. Things can change. Our whole life can change in a second. We never know. So feel compassion for those who are unhappy. Delight in the virtuous. Somebody is very virtuous. Be happy at that. Rather than getting irritated. Oh, showing off. I'm so good, showing off. No. Because why are we so irritated? Because compared with them, we find our shortcomings, our faults, and we are not ready to face them, accept them. So we get irritated with those people. Instead, we should take delight in their virtue. Try to emulate them. Try to see that that's a good example that I can look up to and follow. Indifference towards the wicked. What's the natural reaction of human beings? A wicked person? Do evil to repay in the same coin. Did something bad to me, I'll repay the same way. No, Patanjali says no, be indifferent. returning evil for evil, just keep quiet. A way to remember, it is for yogis, people in the world. If somebody is harming you, you should be protecting yourself, protecting your people, but don't harm others in the name of protecting yourself. Sri Ramakrishna says hiss, but don't bite. Don't put your venom in that. Don't harm the person. But if you have to resist the person, resist, so that you and your property will be protected, or somebody who is unjustly harmed will be protected. We have to resist injustice. But in the name of resisting injustice, don't harm that person. Another question may be raised in this context. Shouldn't we try to help the wicked people? Isn't it our duty to help the wicked to become virtuous? Yes, it is a very great ideal, because that's one of the prayers. May the wicked become virtuous. But are we strong enough to pull them up? If you are strong enough, you can. But if you are not strong enough, what's going to happen? You will be pulled down. So unless you are really advanced in your spiritual life, you are sure that you have got strength to pull that person up, it's better to be indifferent. Stay away and pray for the person. Sri Ramakrishna says, God is present in all. That does not mean that you go and hug the tiger. God is present in the tiger also, but you keep your distance. The wicked person is like the tiger. You go to help the person, you may be harmed. So you keep your distance and you can pray for the person, send good thoughts. That is the best help we can do for wicked people. That is why Patanjali says, indifference towards the wicked. If we can hold these attitudes of mind towards the different objects and people, our mind would remain calm and serene to a great extent. People opposing religion often bring in the argument that religion is promising results in the next life. They say, you do these things, you will go to heaven, you will enjoy all the pleasures. What's the guarantee? What's the guarantee that I'll be going to heaven and I'll be having all these enjoyments? It's all the post-mortem results. Nothing to do with in this life. In this life, I go through all the suffering, and then religion says, oh, go through the suffering, doesn't matter. In the next life, you will be, after death, you will be enjoying all the pleasures. No. But Vedanta is promising the results here and now, in this life, in this body, not after death, not post-mortem enjoyment. Bhagavad Gita says, Shaknoti haiva sodhum raksharira vimokshanat kama krodhodbhavam vegam sa yukta sa sukhi naraha. One who can withstand in this life, before the body falls off, the current arising from lust and anger, he or she is a yogi. He or she is a happy person. So if you want to be happy, we have to withstand the powerful current rising from lust, anger, etc. And Krishna is promising this result. It's not a post-mortem result, not after death. In this life here, in this body, if we can withstand the great force of lust, anger, etc. In the Gita, you can see if Sri Krishna is pointing or mentioning lust and anger. There are 6 passions, because they are the most, or the most powerful ones. He is mentioning only those 2, Kama and Krodha. But there are 6 of them: lust, anger, greed, delusion, pride, and jealousy. Then, if we can withstand, then we will be happy. If we can't, these currents can take us away and make us slaves of the inner forces. Again, Sri Krishna says, even those people who are striving for perfection, even they will be taken away, like the boat taken off the course by strong wind, if we are not careful and alert. So we should cultivate the strength to withstand the forces of these currents. Then we can be happy. Then the person will be happy. The same idea we see in the Imitation of Christ. Thomas A. Kempis says, guard against inordinate desire and cultivate peace and contentment of mind. It is by resisting our passions, not by serving them, that we will find true peace of heart. It's by resisting the passions, lust, anger, greed, etc., and not by serving them that we find peace of heart, true peace of heart. So if you want to be happy, you have to be peaceful. And Sri Krishna throws this challenge. If you are not peaceful, how can you be happy? Ashandasya kuta sukham. How can one without peace have happiness? First we have to have peace, only then we will be happy. So these powerful forces, lust, anger, and other passions, we have to control and channelize these powerful energies. And that is to be done from the young age, when these energy forces are powerful, strong. What happens usually is we think differently, we do act differently. We think that, oh, we have to enjoy all the pleasures of the world. And in the old age, we'll try to think about controlling the mind, turning to higher ideals. But by the time, most of the energy is gone. And then we are trying to control and channelize, and then complain, oh, Sri Krishna said, Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishyan indreisaren atmavisar vidhayatma prasadam adhigachadi. I am not getting any peace. I am not getting any calmness. Because where is the energy to channelize? Everything is depleted. So that's why we don't get the results promised by Krishna. When through self-discipline, these forces we regulate them, then they become our friends. We can make them our friends, we can make them our enemy. If we are able to control them, regulate them, lead them in the proper channel, then they will be our friends. They will help us. Vedanta never says don't enjoy, don't have desires. Again, Sri Krishna identifies himself with desire, unopposed to virtue. Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi, he says. I am the desire unopposed to virtue or righteousness. We can have the desires. Because if you don't have any desire, the body won't last. To have the body going on, to live, we should have desire. When Sri Ramakrishna said about this desire, then somebody asked, have you got rid of all the desires? He said, no, I still got some desire. I had a desire going through Calcutta, I saw some nice colored sweets in the shop. I wanted to eat them. So his big desire, eat these sweets. And they got, for me, I ate them. I ate a lot and became sick. So his desires gone. Then another desire he had, he says, I had a desire to put on a woolen shawl. So the proprietor, Mathur Babu, got the shawl, very expensive cashmere shawl, woolen shawl. He was very happy. Sri Ramakrishna put it on and went around showing everybody and saying, oh, this is so expensive. This is the value of the shawl and everything. after a few moments, his desire was fulfilled. He put it on and finished. Now, what's his attitude? He says, what? This is only increasing my pride. He threw it down, started trampling on it, and was about to set fire to that shawl. Before that, somebody rescued the shawl. So he says, I know, I got some desire. And he often we see in the gospel, when he goes into samadhi, to bring his mind back to the normal consciousness, he will say, I'll have a drink of water. That's a desire, to pull the mind. Even that tiny bit of desire brings the mind down. So how powerful the desires are. We have to control them, channelize them. It's very important. And when we are able to control and channelize them, then they become our friends. And they become helpers in our higher pursuits. And only then can we enjoy bliss. We go beyond the pairs of opposites, happiness and misery, sorrow and joy and sorrow. Because if you take one, you have to take the other. So we are asked to go beyond both. It's not a state, when you go beyond both, don't think that it is a state of neutrality where you remain like a stone or a piece of wood. No, you'll be enjoying bliss. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you can see almost every other page you see is loud laughter, people rolling on the ground in laughter, because Sri Ramakrishna is full of bliss. And that bliss radiates to all the people who come in his presence. And that bliss is attained because he has gone beyond happiness and misery. And he is in touch with that highest level of happiness, what we spoke of, Brahmananda, which comes from touching being in communion with God. All this is said so that we try to go towards that. Don't remain in the first level of sense of happiness. Go to higher levels of happiness, step by step. And try to keep ourselves on the higher level of happiness. As Sri Ramakrishna says, the happiness that you get from singing the name and glories of God, and keep the aim of getting the highest level of happiness, of communion with God. Thank you.
Thanks for all of those who did manage to come today in person on a very cold morning. And thanks to those who joined us via Zoom. Next weekend, we're having a retreat at Dharma, so there'll be no talk here in Vedanta Hall. The retreat's from Saturday evening going through to late Sunday afternoon. You're welcome to join us there. I can give you all the information afterwards. And next Friday night, we'll have the fortnightly Bhagavad Gita discussion led by Gayatriprana. We have donation plate, donation box up the back, and now we'll conclude by listening to a guided meditation by Revered Pravrajika Mataji, who is trying to come earlier.
O Lord, may my mind be so cleansed and strengthened that it may respond to the great mind of the universe. May my heart be in tune with the heart of the universe. May His power and glory be manifest in my life. May His grace surround me and inspire me in all my actions. May I be shielded from all pettiness and littleness, and may I be made worthy of His love and blessing. Help me to open my heart that I may feel His divine inspiration in me and others. Please make my thought free from all distractions, my sight clear, that I may perceive His holy presence in everything and everyone. Rouse my mind and soul and spiritual consciousness that I may manifest nobility and strength in all my actions. Closing your eyes, sit straight. Turn your inner eye towards your spiritual heart. See the light of the world shining therein. When we can't see, it means we are not looking properly. It is there, shining always, whether we look towards it or not, whether we are sleeping or awake, shining bright and clear. We can visualize it as a wonderful flame. In fact, it has no shape. It's just light, a beautiful light, which, as the great texts say, does not need any fuel to burn, does not send out smoke, does not cast any shadow of anything, penetrates and interpenetrates everything. Very powerful, but not piercingly hot. It's cool, bright, but not dazzlingly bright. It's a wonderful glow, ever shining in our heart. For convenience, we can picture it as a beautifully shaped flame. Now, if we try and concentrate on that flame, fully believing that it is there, we can see it shining in the center of our heart. There it is, a beautiful flame, shining in the center of our heart. It belongs to us. Nobody can cover it. Nobody can steal it. Nobody can share it. It's my own. It belongs to me. But it is the light of the universe. It is the condensed form of the life energy of the universe. I carry it wherever I go. I can turn to it when I need help, when I need power, when I need energy. Concentrate on that flame and see that, feel it, that tiny currents of energy are flowing out from that very tiny, feeble, all around. In the center, the beautiful flame is there. And from that, tiny currents of energy are flowing out into all parts of the heart. Tiny little glow from the heart. It flows into all parts of the body, into the arms, into the legs, into the trunk of the body, into the head. Just feel that the whole body is filled with a tiny glow, a beautiful feeling of a glow all over inside the body, with the flame shining in the center of the heart. The glow comes out and covers the whole body outside, covers the skin with a thin film of radiance. Just hold the body. Let us try to hold the body in this state of perfect equilibrium. There is the flame of beauty, radiance, joy, and power in the center of the heart. The tiny glow of its radiance coming out of the flame, filling the heart and overflowing into the body, has come out and spread all over the skin as a thin film of radiance. We are immersed in the bliss of God. We are surrounded by the power of God. We are filled with the radiance of God's beauty. We are carrying the condensed form of the life energy of the universe. Just let us hold ourselves in this state for some time. Hari Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace.